Yo, what is up, everybody? It's your boy SXD5G2 here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you all of my class setups for you guys today's video. So yeah, I'm going to be showing you what the best class setup is going to be. So here it is. It's going to be the first one, LC10. This is my go-to weapon for multiplayer and free for all. If you for all wondering what the best class setup is, because nobody ever will use grip at all. So alright, so we're going to be starting here. For the muzzle, we're going to be using the agency suppressor because this thing's got 7% of vertical recoil controller. So make sure you just use one of those things as always. And then for the barrel, we're using the task force gun. Now this thing's got 7% of damage and 50% of effective damage range. And then this one's got 75 bullet velocity. So just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the magazine, we're using a speed loader. Now, however, I mean, if you want your aim down the sight to be much faster, I would recommend using that, just to kind of give time to reload faster. And now, like, yeah, which one's the best for you, in my opinion? I mean, I go with this one always, but yeah. However, if you want the 52 round max, it's a good class setup also if you want to rock that as well. All right, and then for the handle, we're using airborne logic grab. Now, this thing's got 30% aim down the sight, which is much faster, and it's got 90% of flinch resonance, which that's really a good choice to use, other than the serpent wrap because it doesn't do as quite damage as well. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the stock, we're using Raider stock. Now this thing's got 30% of a sprint to fire time because it increases a speed after sprinting time, so you kind of like fire the multiplayer as easily. I mean, I said fire the multiplayer. I mean fire the guy as easily. So yeah, 30% of sprint to fire time. This one's got 10% aim, walk, and movement speed. So I just recommend using this thing as always. All right, moving on to the next class, which is gonna be the Mac 10. So what I rock for the muzzle is gonna be the agency suppressor, which this one's got 7% of vertical recoil control. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the barrel, I'm using a Ranger barrel. Now this thing's got 100% bullet velocity, which that kind of beams people off the map from long range engagement. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the laser, we're using steady aim laser. Now this thing's got 50% of hip fire accuracy, so I would make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the underbarrel, we're using field agent grip on. Now this thing's got 8% of vertical recoil control, and we got 16% of horizontal recoil control. So those things are really helpful. So I would make sure to use one of those things as always. And then for the magazine, we're using 53 round fast mag, which that gives us plenty of time to use as many bullets as you can, and it reloads much faster too. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the hand that we're using, the electric wrap, which that gives you the 30% bullet velocity. I mean, not 30% bullet velocity, but aim down the sight speed, and then we got 90% of flinch. So I just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the stock, we're using Raider stock. Once again, 30% of sprint to fire time, which that completely helps a lot, and 10% of aim, lock, and movement speed. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. All right, and oh yeah, let me show you my secondary too. This one, I mean, you don't really need it, but I just use it just so I can rush out the map, in my opinion. But yeah, what I rock for the Diamantes do, if y'all wondering what my class setup is, this is gonna be the agency suppressor, which has got 8% of vertical recoil controller. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the task force, gotta use those bear on, which that gives you increased 13% of damage range, and then 40% of effective damage range. And this one right here, 120 bullet velocity. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then we got a SWAT 5 MW laser sight, which has got 35% of hip fire accuracy, which that's really helpful to beam them across the map, in my opinion. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for here, we're using a 30 round fast max. Now, it really makes no difference because you don't need like aim down or side or anything because you're using a dual wheel. So yeah, I would just make sure you just run with the 30 round fast mag. And then for the stock, we're using dual wheel. Those things are good as well. All right, moving on to the third. Which one? Okay, yeah. Let's go and take a look at the QBC 83 real quick. So for the muzzle, we're using the HCC suppressor. Once again, it's got 7% of vertical recoil control. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for this one, for the barrel, we're using the task force, which has got 6% of damage and 50% of effective damage range, and we got 50% of bullet velocity. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the body, we're using steady aim laser, which has got 20% of hip fire accuracy, which that kind of helps a lot when you're inside the house, pushing the teammates and pushing the enemies when they're camping around the corner. It really kind of helps to hip fire people. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the underbarrel, we're using a foregrip. Now this one's got 15% of horizontal recoil control. I wouldn't really use the field agent grip because it's only got 3% of vertical recoil control, and you don't really need it already. So, and this one right here has got 16% of horizontal recoil control. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for the magazine, we're using a 50 round fast mag, which that gives us plenty of ammo and reloads pretty faster as well. So that gives us some more time to kind of put some work to the weapons. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things. All right, and for the handle, we're using the airborne or electric wrap, which again, it's got 30% of aim down and sight speed and 90% of flinch. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the stock, we're using Raider stock, and this one's got 30% of sprint to fire time and 40%'s got aim, walking, movement speed. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. All right, and then for the Bullfrog, I got some decent but best class setup for y'all, man. Y'all got to give it a try, man. It is it's reckless, man. It is literally reckless right now. All right, so for the muzzle, we're using the Specnus compensator, which this one's got 12% of vertical recoil control. So those things really kind of helps a lot to kind of beam them across the map. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the barrel, I'm using a for the 8.1 Liberator, whatever that thing is called. But yeah, those barrel right here, man, it's got 100% of bullet velocity. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things as always. And then for no, oops, sorry. And for the underbarrel, I'm using a forward grip, which has got 50% of horizontal recoil control. And you don't really need this those kind of grip because it's I mean it's got zero recoil whatsoever, man. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things as always. And for the handle, I'm using the electric wrap, which has got 30% of aim down sight speed and 90% of flinch. So I'll just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the stock, we're using no stock, which you don't really need a skeletal stock. I mean, if you want to go for it, but I would recommend using that just because. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as always. All right, moving on to the next class. We were running from the M16, which that's a good that's a good way to start for the long range engagements. So for the optic, we're running with a mill stop reflex, which that's pretty easier to see. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the muzzle, we're using the infantry compensator, which has got 25% of vertical recoil controls. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And for the barrel, I'm using the strike team, which that gives you a 14% of damage, and those things right here, it's this 99% of fire rate, which that kind of helps a lot. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the body, we're using steady aim laser, which that gives you the 18% of hip fire accuracy. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the under barrel, we're using the field agent grip, which that gives you the 10% of vertical recoil control and then 40% of horizontal recoil control. So I would just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the magazine, I usually run 45 round fast mag. I mean, you don't really need 54 in my opinion, but yeah, I'll just go with that just because. So yeah, this is the best class ever here. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things. And then for this one, I'm using a serpent brab, which I'm trying to unlock that, but it's a really good class setup as well. So yeah, I'll just make sure you use one of those things because it's got 25% aim down sight speed. So just make sure you want to use one of those things. And then for the stock, we're using the a combat stock. So yeah, like without a doubt, you can't really go anywhere unless if you're kind of like get that map control for if you're playing TDM or something and you're playing Nuketown, you're sending them back into the house. So yeah, I'll just make sure you're using one of those things as well. But yeah, without a race dark, I won't push or anything because the sprint to fire time it's kind of it's it's not really as good. So yeah, I'll just make sure you use one of those things as well. Yeah, all right. Moving on to the next class, we got the PBSH going, which that thing you already know how this thing rocks, man. It is shredding the whole lobby. So yeah, for the muzzle, we're using the Eliminator, which has got 17% of vertical recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things. And then for the barrel, we're using a Task Force, which has got 7% of damage and 50% effective damage range. And this one for here has got 75% of bullet velocity. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the body, we're using Steady Aim Laser, which has got 50% of hip fire accuracy. So just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the underbarrel, we're using the Specnus Grip on, which has got 8% of vertical recoil control and 22% of horizontal recoil control, which really helps a lot to kind of get that gun to control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as always. And for the magazine, we're using a 55 round drum, which you don't really need the 71, but I would recommend using it just because of the aim down the sight is much faster too. But yeah, this thing is like 18% of aim down sight speed, so you don't want to do that though. So yeah, I would prefer to use a 55 round drums. I mean, if y'all want to go ahead and use that, yeah, I mean you can, but I'm not saying you don't have to. But yeah, this thing I would just give it a go right here. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those magazines as always. And then for the handle, we're using an electric wrap, which that thing is, like I said, it's got 30% of aim down sight speed, and we got 90% of flinch resonance. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those handles. And for the stock, we're using Raider stock. Once again, it's got 30% of sprint to fire time and 10% of aim, walking, movement speed, which that kind of helps a lot. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, moving on to the next class right here. We're using the most toxic weapon. Yeah, you already know where I've been going through all day and long and every day. So yeah, I got some best class for y'all, man. So yeah, we're gonna take a look here. So for the muzzle, we're using a full auto repeater, which I mean, this gun's been nerfed a long time ago. Well, the muzzles have been nerfed a long time ago. So yeah, we're using it because it's got 45% of fire rates, which is kind of it kind of helps to increase the fire rate much faster and things. So yeah, I would recommend using it other than the burst rifle. It's still good, but once again, it's the fire rate's not as good. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things. And for the barrel, we're using the Task Force, which has got 6% of damage and 50% of effective damage range and 75 bullet velocity. Yes, so make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the under barrel, we're using Field Agent Grip, which has got 6% of vertical recoil control and 20% recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, and for the magazine, we're using a 30 round, which you don't really need any other else, but yeah, I would just go with that. Yeah, so yeah, make sure you use one of those things as well. And then for the stock, we're using Raider stock, which has got 30% of sprint to fire time and 10% of aim walking speed. So yeah, make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, and this one it's just crossbows. Yeah, this is my toxicated class setup right here for y'all, man. See if you want to give it a shot, go for it, man. There, we're all the setup we have. This is it right here. All right, so moving on to the next class. I didn't even get a try, but I will give it a go. But yeah, this is my best class setup right here. The one time I tried it for like back in 2021, and this thing shreds though. So yeah, I'm gonna give it y'all the best class setup for y'all, man, to rock. So for the muzzle, we're running with the suppressor, which it gives you the 12% of vertical recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things. All right, for the barrel, we're using Task Force gun, which has got 5% of damage, and we got 100% effective damage range and 44 bullet velocity. So yeah, make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the body, we're using Steady Aim Laser, which that gives you 20% of hip fire accuracy. I wouldn't really use the SWAT laser sight because the thing's got 8% of the aim down sight, which you don't want that to be slow. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those things as well for the Steady Aim laser sight. And for the underbarrel, we're using a Specnus of Grip, which that gives you the 8% of vertical recoil control, and for 30% of horizontal recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the magazine, we're using a 100 round fast mag, which that gives you more time to give us like plenty of ammo and reload much quicker and stuff. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the handle, we're using electric wrap, which that gives you the 30% aim down the sight and it gives you the 90% of flinch resistance. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the stock, yeah, I'm just using it just because the skeletal stock is not unlocked yet, which I need to keep going. But yeah, this is the best class ever here if you all want to copy it down. But yeah, this gets you the 30% of sprint to fire time, and it gets you the 40% of aim, walking, movement speed. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, and moving on to the next class right here, we're gonna use the FFA here, which you already know how I rock it, man. Those things are they're they beam around the map. You know what I'm saying? It beams around the map. So yeah, we're using a muzzle for the HEC suppressor here, which it gives you the 7% of vertical recoil control, which that really helps to keep it under control a lot. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things. And for the barrel, we're using a Ranger barrel, which it gives you 100% of bullet velocity, which that's also kind of wondering how you beam people across the map. Well, here you go. That's 100% of bullet velocity. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the body, we're using a steady aim laser, which it gives you the 15% of hip fire accuracy. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the underbarrel, we're using a field agent grip on, which it gives you 6% of vertical recoil control, and it gives you the 16% of horizontal recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the magazine, we're using a 44 round max because those things, you already know how this thing shoots so fast, man. You definitely need the 44 round max just to kind of help. Or usually I just rock with the 44 round. That's all I can say. But yeah, other than that, I just be rocking with it all the time. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the handle, we're using an electric wrap, which I guess is 30% of hit, aim down the sight and 90% of flinch. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the stock, we're using Raider stock, which it'll give you 30% of sprint to fire time, 40% of aim walking movement speed. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, moving on to the next class right here. We're using a Groza, which I got something to tell you, man. Those things I played on Zoo yesterday, or not Zoo. What was it? Driving? Yeah, I was playing Driving the other day, man. Those things you got to give it a shot, man. Those things will make your day better, dude. I'm telling you, better. But yeah, so for the muzzle we'll be rocking for the eliminator, which that gives you 20% of vertical recoil control. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things for the muzzle. And for the barrel, we're gonna be rocking with com, composite, whatever that thing is called. But yeah, man, those things got 25% of effective damage range, and this one's got 25% of bullet velocity. Those are only the best attachments for the barrel. But yeah, everything else it's all random. It's garbage. But yeah, but don't be rocking with this one because this thing's got 40% of the effective damage range, which you don't want to lose that for the gunfight. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those barrels as always. All right, for the body, we're gonna be using steady aim laser, and this thing's got 20% of hip fire accuracy, which that kind of helps a lot. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, for the under barrel, we're using a Specnus grip, which has got 50% of vertical recoil control and 25% of horizontal recoil control as well. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, for the magazine, we're going to be using a 50 round fast mags, which that gives you plenty of ammo and gives you enough time to reload. So yeah, man, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the handle, we're using electric wrap, which like I said, it gives you a 30% of aim down sight speed and 90% of flinch resistance. So yeah, man, just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the stock, we're using a KGB pad, which it gives you 50% of sprint to fire time. And this one right here, it gives you the 40% of aim, walk, and movement speed. So that kind of helps a lot. So yeah, just make sure you use one of those things as well. All right, moving on to the next class right here. What actually? Yeah, don't even worry about my sniper class. Is my worst class ever already. So yeah, just ignore it. All right, the last class ever here is gonna be the Milano. All right, let's take a look here. For the muzzle, we're using the agency suppressor, which gets you 7% of vertical recoil control. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those things for the muzzle. And for the barrel, we're going to be using it for the task force gun, which has got 5% of damage and 50% of effective effective damage range, and then 75% of bullet velocity. So yeah, man, just make sure you use one of those things for the Milano class setup. And for the body, we're going to be using the steady aim laser, which has got 14% of hip fire accuracy. So I would just make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the barrel, under barrel, I'll be using the field agent grip on. Now this thing's got 7% of vertical recoil control. If you're using task force, I would recommend using that using that grip as well. And this one's got 16% of horizontal recoil control, which that gives you. It is really helpful, man. You got to give it a shot, man. So yeah, make sure you use one of those things as well. And for the magazine, we're using a speed loader. Now, those things, it gives you enough time to reload faster. I mean, you don't really need 50 round max, which I don't really recommend using it because it's got 25% of aim down the sight, and it's kind of slow, so you don't want to really do that for your gun. I mean, you want to go much faster and play hard. Yeah, I would just use one of those things to kind of aim down sight much faster and reload at the same time. So yeah, I would just make sure you use one of those magazines as well for your class setup. And for the handle, we're using a electric wrap, which that's 30% of aim down sight and 90% of flinch. So I'll just make sure you use one of those handle thing for the electric wrap as well. And for the stock, we're using Raider stock. And this one right here gives you 30% sprint to fire time and 10% of aim, walk, and moving speed. So yeah, those things are kind of gives you more work to do. So yeah, man, I guess you all the class today, man. I hope this really helps you a lot to kind of get things rocking, man. And also, if y'all want to see my settings, you want to go ahead and copy what my sensitivity is gonna be like. Go ahead and copy that real quick, and yeah, all my stuff I'll be rocking today's video, man. Yeah, I'll give you the best settings here as well. Yeah, 14 and a 14 ADSing stick sensitivity, which is 0.50. Sensitivity. So yeah, just be rocking with that. And for the button layouts, I use just stick and moves. I don't really use default. I used to be stick and moves. I mean, if you want to get that jump shots, I would use that so you can use your analog stick to kind of use it for the jump stands and stuff. So yeah, in my opinion, I would just be using that. But yeah, man, that's all I got, bro. And for the aim response curve type, I use a dynamic because I don't know, it's much faster without you know any other ways to kind of get yourself situated and stuff. So yeah, man. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this helps you a lot, man. That's all I really got for y'all, man. I hope you guys do enjoy the video, man. If you do, make sure you hit the like and the thumbs up, subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next stream. Peace out.